shame to take a drink on a Sunday? Ain't it a shame? Now what did you say? Ain't it a shame to take a drink on a Sunday? Ain't it a shame? There's no better time. Ain't it a shame to take a drink on a Sunday? Oh, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, ain't it a shame? Wife on a Sunday, ain't it a shame? Well, ain't it a shame to beat your wife on a Sunday? Ain't it a shame? Well, I don't know what happened. Ain't it a shame to beat your wife on a Sunday?
Robert Sellers and A to Z of Hellraisers, a comprehensive compendium of outrageous insobriety. Art Acord. Born 1890, died 1931. He was the cowboy's cowboy. Rough, unbullshittable, built like a Sherman tank, with barely a patch of hide on him that didn't have a knife wound or gunshot scare. By the time Art Acord strolled into Hollywood in 1909, finding work as a stuntman and extra in the fledgling movie business, he was spoken of in revered terms as the greatest all-around rodeo champ America had ever seen, able to throw a steer in 24 seconds. Art learned the ways of the West early. Born to Mormon parents in Utah, he was just 9 years old when he hitched up as a full-time wrangler on a local ranch. It was that authenticity that saw him rise through the ranks to become a top cowboy star with Universal. But his drinking was a major problem. He got on booze binges and be missing for days at a time, causing a shutdown in film production, or he'd indulge in mindless barroom brawls. On set, Art always insisted that the coloured water normally used to fill whiskey bottles contained the real thing. Time and again, studio bosses sacked him, only to be forced to reinstate the actor due to his popularity. One thing Acord despised at Universal was the dreaded studio tour, which existed even back then. One day, as the usual herd of blue-rinsed heifers floated by on the special bus, Acord, having sucked liberally from a bottle of whiskey stashed behind some scenery, began hurling abuse at Mexican actor Ortega, a mean bastard no one messed with. As Ortega went for his knife, Acord whipped out his .45 and fired, hitting the Mexican in the shoulder. But Ortega was made of stern stuff and pounced, plunging his knife deep into Hart's chest, repeated thrusts until his own blood mingled with the cowboy's. By this time, the set had completely cleared of actors and technicians. It also dawned on the tourists that there was no movie scene they were watching but an actual fight to the death. And, amid screams of terror, they scattered for cover. Viciously slashed, Acord managed to stumble to his feet and offload 3 more bullets into the prone Mexican before succumbing himself in a crumpled, bloody heap. Silence. The tour guides hurried their charges back onto the bus and roared away as heads of actors popped up from their hiding places. The eerie hush was suddenly broken up by the raucous laughter of the 2 dead men. Air quotations. Acord and Ortega got up, all smiles. It was a spectacular bust to rid the set of tourists. When the guys discovered the truth, they vowed never to take another tour on an Art Acord set. Such was his international appeal that Art often appeared in Wild West shows and rodeos around the globe. One incredible story has him performing in a large sports arena in Argentina in the mid-20s. According to rodeo showman Milt Hinkle, amongst the spectators was none other than Butch Cassidy, this several years after he was supposed to have been blasted to hell by Bolivian cavalry troops. Many historians have suggested that Butch did not die in that 1908 shootout, but lived on into moderate old age. So here he was, according to Hinkle, and after the show joined Acord and the other cowboys as for a massive booze-up. Large quantities were obviously consumed because it was decided that Butch reformed the famed hole-in-the-wall gang for one last nostalgic act of thievery. Off everyone rode to some wilderness town and committed an outrageous daylight and drunken bank robbery. Back in Hollywood, Art continued to get rat-assed and brawl. He was even arrested for bootlegging. In his drunken rages, he'd fight with anyone who marginally pissed him off, breaking the nose of Victor Fleming, future director of Gone with the Wind, for daring to suggest he wasn't a real cowboy, and picking a fight with one of Hollywood's toughest stuntmen, Yakima Canute, who gave him something of a pasting. Acord later apologised to Canute, who readily accepted after seeing the damage he inflicted on his face. Two men made up after a drink. In the end, Art's alcoholism and self-destructive persona cost him 3 marriages and most of his colleagues' respect and friendship. Barely 30, he looked positively clapped out when Universal finally tired of his horsing around. Cancelled his contract, Acord was left to dig around for morsels with the smaller B-movie studios. He even went to an elaborate length of orchestrating his own kidnapping as a publicity stunt. As a last desperate throw of the dice, he headed to Mexico to hunt for gold, where his propensity for brawling almost got him killed when he was stabbed in a vicious bar fight. It was in Mexico where Art met his inglorious end in a room at the Palace Hotel in the town of Chihuahua. The police listed his death as suicide, that he'd drunk himself to death, but friends were convinced he'd been murdered by a senior politician who caught the cowboy in flagrante with his wife. Acord's body remained in Mexico for some 8 years after his death, until it was returned to the United States for interment. Alas, nearly every one of Accord's silent movies is lost to posterity. At least his contribution to the Western genre is recognised with a deserved star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. There's another story I did on that you'll eventually find on, on the let's go read a book. My little song, my little belting there is a bit of a a lyric musical reference to tempo, musical reference to Sound of Music. I think Dick Van Dyke, let's go fly a kite. Could be someone else, but it's definitely Sound of Music. Anyway, you can find, if you like the first Street's Good story, the story about the rise of Tyr. If anyone, thanks to that one viewer that's already viewed it, I appreciate it, whoever you are. These A to Z of Hellraisers will also be in that playlist as well. I need to not really rush through things, and I suppose I was getting sort of riled because I kept mucking up the introduction about 4 or 5 times. Cut. Like Johnny Cage said in one of his fatalities in Mortal Kombat 11. Who hired this guy? What the fuck? Seeing as I've done this on a Sunday, I'm gonna leave off with a little jokey ditty by Lead Belly and also Nirvana. Yeah. Ain't a shame to have a drink on Sunday, ain't a shame. Ain't a shame to have a drink on Sunday, ain't a shame. Ain't a shame to have a drink on Sunday when you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, ain't a shame. Yeah, the original song is actually called Ain't a Shame to Go Fishing on Sunday, whereas the Nirvana version is just Ain't It a Shame. Not sure which one I prefer actually. But yeah, I'm gonna leave off there and get to editing this and so on and so forth, and yeah, that's it.